Hi friends, hello. Welcome to Crack UPSC CSC with India's largest online learning platform, that is Unacademy. This is Kiran Anishetty, faculty for Political Science, Polity, Issues in Governance, Ethics, and Public Administration. Friends, today we are going to discuss very important and interesting topic, that is fundamental rights. Today we are going to discuss the part 1 of fundamental rights. We'll be getting from an academy the daily live classes, live tests, quizzes, structured courses, unlimited access to the videos on UPSC prelims and mains. You can prepare with the top educators of an academy such as Tarun Goel, Siddharth Arora, Roman Saini, Venkatesh Chaturvedi, etc. You will be getting courses on UPSC prelims and mains from an academy on subjects such as polity, economy, ethics, geography, history, modern India. You can go for 12 months subscription, that will be 44,000. If you use my promo code, that is capital KIRAN, you will be getting 10% discount just at 57,600. You will be getting the subscription for 24 months, and for 12 months out of 44,000 you will get 10% discount. Unacademy has come up recently with a Fecan subscription model, that is iconic subscription. Under this, the most important feature is the aspirant will be getting personal mentorship from the faculty. I will be personally mentoring you with regard to various subjects. Two optionals you will have. Will be guiding with regard to political science and international relations, public administration, polity, ethics, issues in governance, and modern India. Apart from me, Unacademy will provide you the team of experts, and you will be getting daily questions on mains, structured schedule, unlimited test practice, live classes, and personalized feedback from the faculty. 12 months, it will be 57,600. For 24 months, it is 89,100. Friends, before going into the details about fundamental rights in Indian Constitution, first we will discuss in a nutshell the difference between individual rights on one hand, fundamental rights on the other. For this purpose, friends, we need to go a little bit deep into the history. British people started their struggle against the despotic monarchic rule, and this struggle started in 400 AD with the establishment of Waitan. Waitan, it was a council consisting of the eminent people of the place. Whenever the king was supposed to take any important decision with regard to the administration of the country, he had to take the advice from the Waitan. This Waitan slowly developed into Great Council and Little Council. The Great Council evolved into British Parliament, which in turn evolved into the upper house and lower house of British Parliament. Full-fledged parliamentary form of government was formed in England in 1688 AD. The journey started in 400 AD and it culminated in 1688 AD. That means around 1288 years, they fought tooth and nail with despotic monarchic rule. They fought tooth and nail against the arbitrary and authoritarian feudalistic rule. In the melee, all the while they cherished one ideal that the elected, democratically elected legislature can only emancipate people from shackles of tyranny of monarchic government, monarchic rule, and feudal rule. Hence, they reposed immense faith in duly elected legislature, democratically elected legislature. This is why in England, in fact, in most of Western European democratic countries, the citizens will have protection from the arbitrary action of the executive. They will not have protection from the arbitrary action of the legislature. They do not have any protection against legislative aggression because they believe that fully elected legislature will be infallible, impeccable, like God Himself. These are individual rights which are available in most of Western European countries, including England, France, like that, where the individual will have protection from arbitrary action of the executive, but he will not have any protection from legislative aggression. On the other hand, US people, it is the greatness on the part of US political thinkers that they come up with this novel and fecund political concept, fundamental rights. Fundamental rights provide protection not only against the executive tyranny, but also against legislative tyranny. Once again, I repeat, fundamental rights provide protection against, fundamental rights provide protection against not only the executive tyranny, but also against the legislative aggression. Basically, most of European countries' political ideology is motivated by Aristotle political ideology. Aristotle believes that amongst the three organs of the state, legislative, executive, and judicial organs of the state, the legislature should be the supreme. The legislative should have, what do you say, more powers. It should be, what you say, most powerful organ of the state compared to the other two organs of the state, namely executive and judicial. Because legislature consists of elected representatives who have been elected by people through voting. Aristotle's belief is that people, while electing their representatives, they will examine the political prudence, political wisdom, the character strength on the part of the elected representative. They will elect only that person who has good character, honest, political wisdom. That individual should only be elected to, what you say, legislature. That elected legislature will be infallible and impeccable. That is the political philosophy of Aristotle. Most of the European democracies, most of Western European democracies, such as England, France, they do not have judicial review. They do not have fundamental rights. Why? It's because of this conviction that newly elected legislature will be impeccable because it comprises the elected representative with character, with political wisdom and prudence. But on the other hand, US people experienced nightmarish atrocities by their colonial masters, English colonial masters. Full-fledged parliamentary form of government was formed in 1688 AD. But when US got independence, it was around somewhere 110 years after the parliamentary form of government came into existence in England. What does it signify? For 100 years or so, US people were subjected to colonization by parliamentary form of government, not by any feudal lord, not by any king, not by any queen, but in fact by parliamentary form of government. See how the so-called newly elected legislature is responsible for colonization of innocent people. In India, we also experienced inhuman atrocities against Indians. Jallianwala Bagh massacre, many things. For this, who was responsible? It was British parliamentary form of government which was responsible for that. Because after Government of India 1858 Act, the authority to govern India was transformed from East India Company to British Crown. British Crown is just nominal executive in British parliamentary form of government. It is the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, which is the real executive. Hence, for all the atrocities on Indians across the India after Government of India 1858 Act, it was British parliamentary form of government that was responsible, not any king or queen or any feudal rule. This fact bears grand testimony to the conviction that the way any despotic king, despotic aristocracy, real feudalism, in the same vein, newly elected legislature can also perpetrate human atrocity. This is political philosophy behind fundamental rights. And this is the difference between individual rights and fundamental. When people have individual rights, as in the case of England, as in the case of France, they will have protection from the arbitrary action of the executive, but they will not have protection from legislative aggression. On the other hand, people in US, since they have fundamental rights, and as in the case of India as well, the people will be having protection not only from the arbitrary action of the executive, but also from the legislative aggression. This is the difference between fundamental rights and individual rights. Always you bear this fact, this concept in your mind. Fundamental rights, it doesn't mean that you need to mug up some articles, you need to mug up some rights, and you have to reproduce, you have to vomit in the exam. No, you get to learn based on concepts. When you learn the subject based on concept, that will be embedded in your mind. This is the difference between legal rights or individual rights and fundamental rights. We studied many times that the concept of fundamental rights we adopted from US Constitution. But Paradoxically, the original US constitutional document meant to contain fundamental rights. In US Constitution, fundamental rights have been incorporated through Bill of Rights in 1791. First 10 amendment acts that have been effected in US Constitution and incorporated these fundamental rights to Bill of Rights. In a nutshell, now we will discuss the differences between the fundamental rights in US Constitution and the fundamental rights in Indian Constitution. First, in US, the state cannot impose any restriction on fundamental rights. They are absolute. Only the judiciary can impose restriction on fundamental rights. Uh, in Indian Constitution, you study fundamental rights under Part 3. Each fundamental right will have reasonable restriction. These fundamental rights are not absolute. Each fundamental right, it consists of some reasonable restriction. And these restrictions can be amended or can be added by Indian Parliament. But in US, the restrictions on fundamental rights cannot be imposed by US Congress. Cannot be imposed by US. The judiciary in US can impose reasonable restrictions on fundamental rights in US Constitution. The judiciary can impose such restrictions on fundamental rights. But whereas in India, the parliament can impose reasonable restrictions on fundamental rights. This is one of the differences between the fundamental rights in US and the fundamental rights in India. Next, in India, fundamental rights can be deleted altogether by the parliament. But in US, the Supreme Court, in US, the Congress cannot delete the fundamental rights. The Congress cannot delete the fundamental rights. They can be deleted only through Constitutional Amendment Act. Next difference. During any emergency, the legislature cannot suspend the fundamental rights in India. So in US, even during emergency, the fundamental rights cannot be suspended by the state, neither by the executive nor by the legislature. They can only be suspended by Supreme Court of US. But in India, the fundamental rights can be suspended during national emergency, except the fundamental rights that have been enshrined under Article 20 and 21 by the executive. By the executive himself, the fundamental rights can be suspended during emergency, during national emergency in India. This is also one of the differences between fundamental rights in US and the fundamental rights in India. In India, the fundamental rights can be deleted altogether by parliament, just as we discussed now. And in US, the Supreme Court of US has such kind of authority. And here we need to understand one more aspect. We need to differentiate fundamental rights in Part 3 and other legal rights that have been enshrined in other parts of the Constitution. The fundamental rights that have been enshrined in Part 3, they provide protection against uh, the tyranny of executive action and legislative aggression. And apart from that, in case of violation of any of such fundamental right, we can directly approach the Supreme Court under Article 32. But in case of the legal rights that have been enshrined outside Part 3, we have to approach the regular hierarchy of the courts. That is the main difference between the fundamental rights that have been enshrined in Part 3 and the other legal rights that have been enshrined in other parts of the Constitution. So, before going into the details of fundamental rights, we discussed till now what is the political philosophy behind the origin of fundamental rights, what are individual rights in England, in France, and in most of Western European democratic countries, what are the differences between individual rights and fundamental rights. Second, we discussed the differences between fundamental rights in US and fundamental rights in India. In US, fundamental rights cannot be removed or deleted by the Congress. It can be removed only through constitutional amendment procedure in which the states are involved. Even during national emergency, the fundamental rights cannot be suspended by the state in US, but they can be suspended only by the Supreme Court of USA. But whereas in India, the fundamental rights can be suspended even by the executive. Third, restrictions cannot be imposed on fundamental rights by US Congress. They are absolute. The fundamental rights in USA are absolute. But on the other hand, in India, reasonable restrictions can be imposed on fundamental rights by the parliament. These are the differences between the fundamental rights in US and the fundamental rights in India. Then we discussed the differences between the fundamental rights that have been enshrined in Part 3 of the Constitution and other legal rights that have been enshrined in other parts of the Constitution, such as the legal rights that have been enshrined under Article 265, which says that no tax can be levied and collected except by an authority of law. That means no tax can be imposed except by legislation. Then Article 325 says no individual will be denied to be entered into electoral rolls only on the grounds of race, religion, gender, etc. Then Article 326 says the citizens of India who are above 18 years have suffrage. So the difference is that if any fundamental right is violated under Part 3, we can approach the Supreme Court directly. But on the other hand, any other legal right is violated that have been enshrined other than in Part 3, we have to approach the regular hierarchy of the courts, District Court, High Court, then Supreme Court. That is difference between fundamental rights and legal rights. And now we will start discussing the actual, the enumeration of fundamental rights. Fundamental rights have been incorporated in Part 3 of the Constitution. Article 12 defines the term state for purpose of fundamental rights. Article 12 says state includes the government and parliament of India, the government and state legislature of state, all local authorities, and statutory and non-statutory authorities. 12 says the state comprises the government and parliament of India, the government and state legislature of the state, all local authorities, and the statutory and non-statutory authorities. That is the definition of state under Article 12. Then Article 13 defines law. Any law made by Parliament, any law made by state legislature, delegated legislation in the form of law, laws, bylaws, rules, etc. Delegated legislation means the legislature will be legislating the law in skeletal form. That means the parliament or state legislature will be legislating a law in skeletal form. That means it will be incorporating only the very important provisions of the legislation. The rest of the details are left to the executive, that is the minister and his official, that is delegated legislation. Yes. Delegated legislation will also come under the ambit of the definition of law. And fourth, any custom or usage having the force of law. Any custom or usage having the force of law. That means any practices like in Nagaland, some tribal practices replace what you say the criminal law and civil law in Nagaland. So these tribal laws or these tribal practices have the force of law. Such custom, such usage as force of law also comes under the ambit of definition of law under Article 13. Article 14 onwards, the actual fundamental rights start. Article 14 enshrines equality before law and equal protection of law. Equality before the law and equal protection of law. Equality before the law refers to absence of any privilege by reason of birth, creed, or life. Absence of any privilege. In olden times, there used to be privileges on the part of noble family members of noble family or the relatives of the king, the members of aristocracy, the feudal lords. They used to have privileges. Even if they did any crime, no punishment used to meted out against them. For instance, we might have heard kings forcefully marrying wives of other men by killing their husbands. Such kind of privilege will not be there on the part of any section in the society. That is the meaning of equality before law. All sections of the society are subjugated equally to the law of the land. That is equality before law. Then equal protection of law. What do you mean to say equal protection of law? Equal treatment of equals in equal circumstances. Equal treatment of equals in equal circumstances. For instance, if I belong to scheduled caste community, I will be treated equally with regard to positive discrimination, that is reservation in public employment and education. All of my members from scheduled caste community will be having this positive discrimination. But members from upper caste, forward caste, they cannot claim reservation saying that Article 14 ensures equality. No. Article 14 also says equal protection of law. That means equal treatment of equals under equal circumstance. Equal treatment of equals in equal circumstance. If I belong to forward caste, I cannot claim the reservation in the same way the downtrodden sections of community claim, because their circumstances are different and my circumstances in which I grew up and what do you say, I I got educated are different. So equal treatment of equals in equal circumstance. Last year, the government came up with reservation for economically backward classes. All the people, irrespective of their religion, whether they belong to Sikh community, Muslim community, Christian community, or Hindu community, if they fall within the bracket of particular income group, they will be treated equally. That is reservation for economically backward sections of the society. That is equal treatment of equals in equal circumstance. Article 14 prohibits class legislation, but it does not prohibit classification for the purpose of legislation. Class legislation means you legislate a law by giving some privileges to a particular section of the society. These sections of the society will be having these privileges. That is class legislation. Like Firoz Shah Tughlaq, he used to extend what you say marriage expenses for brides who belong to Muslim community. So people who are from the brides from Muslim community, they will only be enjoying such privilege. That is class legislation. Classification for the sake of legislation means we classify the downtrodden sections of society, such as SCs and STs. They will have reservation in public employment and education. That is classification for the purpose of legislation. So this is how Article 14 prohibits class legislation, but not classification for the purpose of legislation. And this article is available for Indians as well as for aliens. Always remember, the fundamental rights can be classified. The fundamental rights which are applicable for both citizens and aliens equally on one hand, and the fundamental rights that are available to the citizens only. This particular fundamental right is available for citizens as well as for aliens. Then Article 15, prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. But it does not prohibit positive discrimination and merit qualification. That we need to understand. The clause 1 of Article 15, it prohibits the discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, or place of birth. So this prohibition is meant for the government. The state shall not discriminate on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. The state shall not discriminate on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. But the state can prescribe merit qualification. For instance, for recruitment into medical department, it can prescribe technical qualifications such as MBBS degree or MS or what you say that for paramedical staff, nursing, like that it can prescribe merit qualifications and technical qualifications. And Article 15 does not prohibit positive discrimination. That is why the word only on the grounds of, that means other grounds are allowed. The state shall not discriminate only on the grounds of. That means other grounds are accepted. What could be the other grounds? The other grounds such as positivity, the reservation for the downtrodden sections of the society such as SCs, STs, women, OBCs in public employment and in education. Now, from recent time, people from what you say uh, weak economic sections of the society also have this positive. Clause 2 of Article 15 provides that as far as places of public such as wells, tanks, bathing gardens, entertainment are concerned, no person shall be subjected to discrimination on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, place of birth. With regard to places, public places, no person shall be discriminated against or shall be imposed any restriction only on the grounds of religion, race, caste, place of birth, etc. In olden times, most unfortunate and diabolic practice used to go on. Upper caste people used to use some wells and some water bodies which were not supposed to be used by the downtrodden sections of the society. Many pictures also have been put on this, how downtrodden sections of the society used to die lack of water on one hand. On the other hand, the upper caste people used to enjoy huge water bodies. And these people from downtrodden sections of the society were prohibited to use wells and other water bodies that are used by upper sections of the society. This kind of discrimination used to be there. Article 15 clause 2 prohibits such kind of discrimination with regard to these public places and places of public resort. And this article is available only to citizens. This article is available only to citizens. Then Article 60, equality of opportunity in the matters of public employment. Equality of opportunity in the matter of public employment. This also available only for citizens. But there are some exceptions for Article 16. These exceptions are the Parliament can prescribe residence as condition for certain employment under the state government or union territory or local authority. Parliament can prescribe residence as a condition for certain employment under state government or union territory or local authority. For instance, Article 31D in erstwhile United Andhra Pradesh prescribed zonal system in Telangana, Andhra, and Rayalaseema. Like used to have around 6 zones. Certain posts, such as the post in Group 2, Sub Inspector post, and below Sub Inspector post, below Group 1, Group 2, and below Group 2. These posts used to be recruited on the basis of this zonal system, especially Group 2 and Sub Inspector of Police posts used to be recruited on zonal system, and people from that zone used to have 70 to 80% of reservation. In the same state, of Andhra Pradesh, people from that zone, each zone used to consist of around 4 to 5 districts. So people from those districts used to have around 70 to 80% of reservation in the post under the state government at Group 2 and Sub-Inspector of Police post. So that zonal system was prescribed by Article 371D. Next, the state can provide reservation for backward classes which are not properly represented in state services. The state can provide reservation for backward classes which are not properly represented in state services, which we call as positive discrimination. And third exception is the offices connected with religious or denominated institutions may be reserved for the members professing a particular religion or belonging to the particular denomination to which the institution relates. There may be some government offices which are related to some particular religion or related to particular religious denomination. For instance, in our Telugu speaking states, Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, Tirumala temple is famous in the country. So Tirupati temple has a temple trust which is called Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam. That temple trust CEO, Chief Executive Officer, is senior IAS officer. Is a senior IAS. So is government official, no? But the temple trust belongs to particular religion, that is Hindu religion. So being the official related to that particular religious institution, sometimes he needs to follow traditions of that particular religion. For instance, wearing traditional clothes such as dhoti or lungi and shirt, not wearing chappal and shoes near the temple, observing vegetarianism in the on the atop the seven hills in Tirumala. Vegetarianism is strictly followed. No non-veg food is allowed. Such kind of religious instructions he needs to follow. In such instances, people who belong to that particular religion will be appointed in that particular institution, government institution that is related to that particular religion. In the same way, Works office in our Hyderabad, we have Works office that is related to what you say, uh, Makkah pilgrimage. So that is a state government body. So in that, government officials who belong to Muslim community will be apart. So this is the third exception. These are the three exceptions available for article. Then comes Article 17, abolition of untouchability. Abolition of untouchability. Earlier, we used to have this most unfortunate and diabolical practice, untouchability. This particular article, this particular fundamental right is not self-executory. This fundamental right can be executed by Parliament by legislating a law. Hence, Parliament legislated Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955 in this respect. Parliament legislated Protection of Civil Rights Act in this respect in 1955, and it bans untouchability, which includes refusing admission to any person to public institutions such as hospitals, educational institutions, places of public resort such as hotels, refusing admission to any person to public institutions such as hospitals, educational institutions, and case of any public resort such as hotel or restaurant. Second, preventing any person from offering prayers or worship in any place of worship. Preventing the person from offering prayers or worship in any place of worship. Earlier times, people from downtrodden sections of the society used to be prevented to enter into temples. So such kind of preventing people from particular community to enter into temple also comes under what you say touchability, and people who practice such acts can be punished under Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, and it also includes imposing any disability with respect to access to any place of public resort, shop, restaurant, or public entertainment. And in 1917, in 1970s, this act was what you say amended, and insulting a member of scheduled community on the grounds of untouchability also comes under practicing untouchability. Teaching and justifying untouchability also comes under practicing untouchability. This is Article 17, friends. In next class, we will discuss the rest of fundamental rights. Thank you. See you in the next session with more interesting and important topic. Please use my promo code, that is capital KIRAN, and get 10% discount. If you want these PPTs, please subscribe to this post Telegram link. Thank you. Thanks a lot.